Hello, I'm Phil Svitek, 360 Creative Coach, and for this lesson, I'm joined by my friend Will Abeles, who, for context, I've known since college. He is a comedian, among other things, and definitely check out our interview that we've done because you'll learn a ton about him. But today, the thing I want to focus on is this idea that that we essentially reprimand people if they're not extraordinary, and yet all of us are ordinary. So I want to kind of get your perspective on how you feel about that idea, like that we all have to strive to be extraordinary as opposed to just being.
Well, I think I don't know. I think everyone is a lot more anxious these days. You know,
That is true.
I think one of the reasons for that is social media does show us at any moment what someone's doing all the time, and especially their accomplishments. And I think that puts this pressure on ourselves to like, well, I have to also be striving to achieve the same goal that they have and everything. I mean, I think it's hard to escape it, and it's hard to focus on the things that you value because you're always looking at all the other things people are doing.
Do you think? I mean, like, I feel like there's a school of thought where it's just like social media amplifies what's already been there. It's just exposing our inner thoughts as opposed to like creating this new problem. And I would sort of agree with that. And actually, what I'm most curious about, I don't know if you've ever tried this or like what your thoughts on it are, but they say if you find yourself in that position where you're just envious of everyone you see on social media, the solution is not don't cut out social media. It's comment on every picture you do see because it humanizes them for you.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I personally like the Facebook snooze.
What's that? I don't think
You
I've
can
heard
do
that.
like a 30-day snooze, and it's
This is in Facebook. Facebook allows this. I'm shocked
so
by
you can
this.
snooze someone for 30 days, and then they kind of come back into your life. And I like it because normally you run into that, kind of what you said, but like normally you run into that person in that time period and just having a normal conversation and not seeing who they're. Well, I mean, I also understand most of my Facebook are comedians, so their statuses are always test jokes or whatever it is. But you see that person and it humanizes them, and you have a good conversation. You remember why you. Maybe not why you became Facebook friends in the first place, but why you became friends in the first place.
Yeah. Well, I also feel like this is a larger part, like as far as I feel like we idealize people so much and we make them like beyond human beings. Like, I don't care if you're looking at Winston Churchill, Harriet Tubman, Martin Luther King, like whoever your idol, like Jimmy Kimmel, I don't care. And we make them to be like these deities when it's like, no, this, at the end of the day, this is a normal, ordinary human being that have bouts of extraordinary things.
Yeah.
Which should be inspiring because that just shows like you can do it too.
Right. And I mean, I think as people, we do have a obsession with celebrity, whether it's like an actual celebrity or just even someone around town who's the best football player or whatever it is. You're drawn to them, but I honestly can't explain what it is. Maybe it's because it's something that you don't think you can do, and maybe you could if you tried. You know?
Well, I mean, it's interesting because I think there's a difference between appreciating someone versus like this envy. Like, you know, you and I come from a soccer background. I look at like Ronaldo or Messi and I'm like, I'm not envious of them. I just appreciate what the fuck they're able to do. Yeah. As opposed to I'm like, listen, my playing days of like, I'm just happy to play pickup in terms of soccer.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I'm not dreaming of playing for Barcelona one day.
Well, maybe it's a thing like you can get some people are so good at the specific thing they're doing that you, even if you are also good at it, you're like, well, that's the best it's ever lived. And so maybe instead of feeling jealous towards that, that's why you have the appreciation, because it's just maybe you are just the 1% beyond the 1%.
I guess.
And you just like I just can enjoy watching them because there's no way, no matter how much I train or how much I try, I'm never going to be able to do that because it was like you were born with it, you know.
Yeah. You know, I mean, you know, I don't necessarily know like what conclusion we're going to come to with this conversation, but I do feel like I just think we need to just as people demystify this idea of like looking at people as like they have to be this end all be all, and also like from that perspective for their benefit too, because we have such a high opinion of celebrities. Like, God forbid they fuck up and it's all of a sudden they're crucified. It's like, no, they're humans too. If people put my fuck ups on on blast.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine. Well, first off, like it's narcissistic to think people would actually really give a shit about my fuck ups.
Yeah. That's how I feel about me. It's something that, so I just toured through the South and and I hit a lot of small towns and some smaller cities. And it is this thing that I realized, like either being in Los Angeles or being in New York, you forget that it feels like no one's able to forgive anyone. There's some things you can't forgive, right? But there's some things that you see that maybe a celebrity did, and it was 10 years ago, and instead of just acknowledging them for having growth as a person, you're just like, nah, this one time they were the worst thing ever. But as I was touring the country, you realize like people are much more willing to forgive, and I don't know. I don't see that as much in New York and in LA for the most part.
Meaning people in LA and New York do not forgive, like they
yeah,
remember,
or not like not everyone, but you see it on Twitter and you see it on Facebook and everything, and it's just it's harder to, I don't know, if it's starting to feel like we're as a society we're getting off on like the person, like say like something came out about Tom Hanks and it was like something very small, like really small, like one time he said something 20 years ago.
He got angry because the coffee was wrong.
Yeah,
and
right.
And
he started yelling like on set or something like that. And like, I feel like people would be so pumped, because it's like this guy that you think is perfect and you just take him down. And I think we're getting very comfortable with that idea.
Yeah, so the notion of we're all ordinary, that's not what I mean.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you frame it in that way, because that is something that I do see.
Right. It's like we can all have mistakes, but you have to grow from them.
Exactly. Well, that's our thoughts on this kind of notion. I'd be curious to know your thoughts, so please, by all means, comment down below. Hit us up on social media. I'm at Phil Svitek.
I'm at Will Abeles Comedy.
Indeed. And in fact, if you enjoyed what Will said, you can check out his comedy. You can follow him there. And also, you have an album as well that they can check out.
Yeah, I do have an album. It's called Regrets of My Father. It's on iTunes, and you can also just put in Will Abeles on Pandora, and then it'll match up with other comics they think that I'm similar to. So it's kind of cool.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I know your time is very precious to you, so I do appreciate it. And for more content such as this, all you have to do is subscribe and follow. And I hope to see you next time.